This is when it comes down to, because big buyers agencies would have a workforce.
Yes.
So you as an individual, when you were buying for yourself. And everything that you do for yourself, and even when you're running a business, if you're treating every service engagement as if you're doing it for yourself, you're going to build a great business. So you were buying it for yourself, as opposed to the big buyers agencies who actually hire employees who potentially have other interests outside of there. They just want to pay their mortgage or and they don't have that drive and foresight that you would have as the individual. So yeah, that's definitely a negative.
100%. So when a lot of big buyers agents scale, they don't necessarily have teams that may have that skill set. So I think it's important for wherever you're at in your investing career, whether you are just buying your first home, you're a sophisticated investor, you are an entry-level buyer's agent, mid-tier, top, or just pumping the largest amount of volume, you need to know how to deal with agents. You need to know exactly what that agent's looking for, or the certain behavioral traits that you need to exhibit that agent's going to really gravitate towards.
Inspire confidence, yeah.
And I was very confident. I mean, when I bought my 14 properties in 12 months, I'd already bought and sold 8 properties before that.
So you bought 14 in 12 months, yeah?
Yeah. The goal was to only buy 4 or 5 that year, but I just ended up doing it really well. Under market value, growth market, high yield. We would do cosmetic renovations and get that equity uplift and so on. But I bought really well. I picked the agents. I knew which agents were selling stock that was value for money. I knew which agents were selling things that were below market value. I had studied that, and I built rapport with them so that they knew who I was. So when I bought, I was like, look, I'm ready to go. I'm cashed up, pre-approved. This is what I'm after. Let's go. When this pops up, I'm ready. I'll sign. And I remember beating, very, very well-known buyers agents at the time because of how serious I was and the fact that I built rapport. I didn't muck around. I went and signed the contract immediately, pay the deposit, move forward. But I had enough confidence in what I was doing because I had already bought and sold. So, and this is for those investors who are new to the game. They need to have someone with them that understands it if they're not confident. So, for example, I'll give you a quick story. I remember buying a property in Heckenberg, and I called the agent, and I knew that I was buying something that was very under market value. It was on for $279. I called the agent. I said, listen, I'm going to come down there. We're going to get the contract because every office has one printed contract in the office. So I said to him, grab that contract. What's the lowest price you can do? He goes, $260. I go, grab that contract. Don't let anyone touch it. I'm going to be there in 20 minutes. We'll sign it. I'll pay the 0.25 deposit. Then we'll go look at the property. All right? Because I already understand.
The fact that you know that they only have one hard copy contract is an interesting thing.
That's because I spent time with agents asking these questions. So I was already, before we had the data we had today, I used to do things like, hey, Mr. Agent, what's your inquiry rate like? How many phone calls, inquiries did you have for the last month versus this month? So that's how I ascertain how hot the market is, how many people are showing up to the auctions and so on. So I was doing on-ground data, but I didn't realize it was data at the time. It's still data. Everything's data, right? So
absolutely. That's a great metric, by the way. I'll consider that.
You'll learn a thing or two, mate. Don't worry. So then I'd go look at the property. Now I understood that the 0.25 was what $700 or whatever it was. I figured it was $400, $700. I can't remember at the time, but I can't remember back to that time. But I'd sign it and I'd risk that 0.25% deposit. Why? Because I already know if I buy this for $260, I already know comps are at $330. Worst case, this is a post-war 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom. If I've got to gut this and renovate it, it's going to cost me between 25 and 30K. I already know that. Guess what it ended up costing me when I bought it? 26, right? So I already knew this in my head before I went into the transaction, before anything. So when I called the agent, I called with confidence and I said, listen, take that contract. I'm going to come in, I'm going to sign it, and then we're going to look at it. So we went to look at it after I had signed the contract, whilst there was a bunch of people at the open house. And I said, and guess, and it was a bad open house because I had wallpaper all over it, and it definitely was an original home. The guy bought it for $8,000 in 1962 or whatever it was, and I had that original home. So there's a lot of work, right?
It's a replacement value element, yeah.
But I understood what it was going into the transaction. So funny thing is, looking back, that was an extremely confident buyer's agent style of a transaction. Well before that was my second property into that 14 property run, by the way. Oh, first property into that 14 in 12 months property run that I had in 2013. So, and that was December 2012. So I think it's extremely important that whether you are starting out, you're a sophisticated investor, or you're a buyer's agent, that you understand how to behave, act, and come across when dealing with an agent if you want priority.
Yeah, those are no, absolutely, absolutely. Those are the nuances that you either acquire through asking questions or through making mistakes, and it's there's a learning curve there, or as you said, you get a professional on your side. The other side to that coin would be as well, okay, where do I look at? Because as you mentioned, you will look at, inquiry volumes as an indicator of market saturation. These days we have, sophisticated methods on how to actually anticipate and know these trends that are actually shaping the market. And as I said before, this is a good segue into what we're going to chat about. The best way to understand what's going to happen in the future is to look at the past. And the reason why, the last year is actually specific is because it actually relates more to the year that's coming forward macroeconomically than to years that were before that. And looking at the last year patterns, there are some interesting insights that I've derived about the trends that will continue, I believe, shaping purchasing in 2025. Some were surprising to me, others not so much. And I think there's about 10 things. We'll go through it one by one. I haven't counted them. I think there's about 10 things that really, really stood out in the last year. And the most, I guess, with data sets, and what is beautiful about data sets is that you're looking for that hidden gem. In the same way you're looking for that hidden gem in property selection, you're looking for that thing that usually you wouldn't actually look at. You would just dismiss it or bypass it. And you're trying to find these nuances in data sets that nobody can actually elicit or separate from the data upon which you can make a decision. And that gives you a competitive advantage.